How often do you think about getting old?
Not too often, honestly. I try not to.
Really?
I mean, I feel it in my bones sometimes. I feel like I wake up more sore than I did when I was, even 27.
John?
I think about it probably a little bit more often than Evan does, seeing that I have a few years on him. But yeah, it's definitely.
But he's also got a fiance, so he's got to think about not just himself, but someone else getting older with him. Congratulations, by the way.
So you've never thought about how you want it to end?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some morbid thoughts from time to time, but not like I don't walk around saying, "Is it going to be the bus? Is it going to be?"
Yeah, believe it or not, I
like what? I don't know what you're asking.
I didn't necessarily mean that, but how you want things to wind down and
I'm still worried about
what your legacy would be, and here's your.
Still worried about my career, Steiny.
Fair. I'm watching our Warriors, and I realize, Chris Paul, he's going back to Phoenix. The first time he's gone back to Phoenix. Oh, Chris Paul's 38. He came off the bench this year for the first time in his career. And we're watching Klay Thompson. I'm just throwing this out there because I'm kind of, it is hitting a little bit personally. Klay Thompson is getting older. His career's winding down. I started thinking, how do you want it to end? Whether it's your career or whether it's Klay Thompson, what's the best way to kind of go out? And to me, there's only a few ways you can go out. You can get hurt, and it's essentially a career-ending injury. You can come to the cold realization that no teams in the league really want you anymore. That'll cost you. That'll be the end of your career. You can start to accept a more friendly role as you get older, or you can leave on your own terms. And you and I both were thinking about this because you happened to watch the Barry Sanders documentary last night.
Yeah, Bye-Bye Barry. It's on Amazon Prime. It's incredible. Barry
Sanders, of course, former running back for the Lions who retired at 30. But I'm thinking of Klay Thompson and how this thing's going to wind down. And I was thinking, well, how do you want to do it? How'd Tim Duncan do it? Oh, Tim Duncan did it great. He was a star, and he morphed into a role player. He was perfect. Okay, then I think of Barry Sanders. He walked away on his own terms. No doubt about it. And so I'm just thinking of all these guys and how you want to do it. So I thought of this guy. To me, this guy did it perfectly. Perfectly, and it's a recent example. Buster Posey. Posey, to me, did it perfectly. He won 3 titles, still pretty good. Took the COVID year off, obviously, so that's a little bit of an outlier. Came back, had a really, really good season. Team won 107 games. Still pretty good. Night-night. Night-night. Posey did it perfectly, I think. So I was just starting to think, what's Klay Thompson's perfect? What's Chris Paul's perfect? What's Curry's perfect going to be? Will they walk away on their own terms? Will Steph Curry retire in a way before anybody sees it? Or will he maybe be a sixth man at 44? Who knows? You know what I mean? So I've just been giving that a lot of thought.
No, I think it's interesting. And from watching the Barry Sanders doc, because to your point about Posey, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone because it hasn't really been uncovered as to why he walked away when he did. I mean, he was a year removed from rushing for 2,000 yards and being the MVP of the NFL. But he defined walking away on your own terms. It was his choice. No one else had anything to do with it. And it wasn't because of outside factors. It was because of what he wanted to do. But I also think, to your point about Posey and then Barry Sanders, both of those guys did it appropriately because that's who they were. I don't think Klay Thompson is that kind of guy. Klay Thompson to me is a hooper. He loves basketball. That's what he does. I don't know his off the court persona that, but he doesn't have a family.
Right.
He's not the family man that Stephen Curry is. Even Draymond brings his kids into press conferences. Like, clearly they have other things that might be more important than basketball to them. I have a hard time believing that Klay Thompson right now has something in his life that's more important than basketball. And so when you're in a constant state of recalibration each year because either you're getting older or in his case you have 2 catastrophic injuries, it's probably really difficult to deal with that. And so
right.
I don't know how Klay Thompson is going to end his career. Someone like Chris Paul to me is maybe a little more clear, because I think choosing to go to the 6th man role and coming off the bench is a sign that he's willing to go out on his own terms. Like, it was his choice to go to the bench. If he came into Golden State and threw a fit and said, I'm not coming off the bench, I don't think he would, because I also think the Warriors and Steve Kerr have enough respect for him to let him do that. But it was his choice to come off the bench, just the way it was his choice to immerse himself into Warriors culture, the same way it was his choice to make the most out of Oklahoma City or make the most out of Houston or make the most out of any one of his prior stops. So to me, the best way for Chris Paul to quote-unquote go out is to accomplish something that he hasn't before. And really the only thing he hasn't done is win a championship.
Yeah. I'm thinking also of, in somebody's regular old life, will there, will I get Steiny hit the pike? I could get Steiny hit the pike, and that's how it ends.
Anytime.
Or I could say, you know what? I'm walking away right now. Hey, stop cheering out there.
Well,
I just said I could.
We got 2.5 hours left, so.
But of course, I think
don't leave me hanging.
I think athletes are like everybody. They want to go out on their own terms.
But it's interesting though, because
but you can't always look at Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
He went out in 2 different ways. He screwed up, and then he didn't want to relinquish his star role, and it cost him a couple years in the league and made him a less effective player because he was bucking being a 6. Then he was didn't play and said, you know what, now I'm ready to go out a 6th man. And he was actually more useful as last year than the couple before that. So you look at a guy like, to me, Allen Iverson. He did not go out the right way. Not the right way, but Denver, Memphis, maybe not quite hanging on, but I wouldn't have wanted to. I wouldn't want to be Iverson and have to find out the hard way that, dude, you're not good enough anymore. And even if you are, you're just not worth it.
But at the same time, I also see. I kind of disagree, because Iverson did not ride off into the sunset. But I also think that's kind of who Iverson was. Like, that dude would drive his body into the ground every single season, and it was going to be his way or it was going to be the highway. And he went out pretty early compared to, now, Klay or Dre. I think he was out of the league by his time he was 33. But Allen Iverson wasn't ever going to be a bench player. That's not who he is. That's never who he was. And as much as I respect someone like Carmelo Anthony for, being willing to come off the bench or play more of a mentor role. I mean, Russell Westbrook recently just said he was going to come off the bench for the Clippers. I respect that, but I also respect someone that says, you know what? If I can't be the man, I'm done. I'm done.
Well, he didn't say if I can. Well, he said
someone told him, you're not the man anymore. You can either be a bench player or you got to go. And he said, I'm out.
That's fine. I in a perfect world, you can make that judgment your own. But anyway, 888-957-9570. Matt Steinmetz, Evan Giddings with you. We're just talking about how do you want to go out? I'm not trying to be morbid
at all. How do you want it to end?
No, but to me, and then the other question is, how important is it how it ended? It doesn't matter that I'll go back to me, the original guy who just could never, ever, ever retire. And that's Steve Carlton. old pitcher for the Phillies. Used to be
a lefty,
maybe the best pitcher in baseball in his time, and he just couldn't hang it up. And if you look at his baseball card, as they say, and you look at his last 5 or 6 years, you're like, oh my God, what happened? You know, he was 40 or whatever. He was old, but he just couldn't. And some people point to that as the way you don't want to. I don't know. Maybe I kind of wouldn't, but I could see how you just keep playing till the wheels come off. I wouldn't want to be a shell of myself for too long as a professional, I don't think.
Sure. And in
an ideal world.
No, I'll hear that. But, okay, let's take someone like Kobe Bryant, who, after his Achilles injury, was, based on his career, like a shell of himself, with all due respect to the late, great Kobe Bryant. But Kobe went out on his own terms in a game in which he scored 60 points. Like, that was the crescendo to the end of his career. That was the exclamation point. And I don't think he'd rather have it any other way. You know, he did it in front of his entire family. He said before the season he was going to retire. He got his farewell tour, and then he capped it off with a classic 50-shot Kobe performance. Yeah, he didn't make the playoffs that year. The team wasn't particularly good. And you could argue for the majority of his final 2 or 3 years, it was just kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe Kobe's still out there and he's shooting 40%, and you know, he's not the guy he used to be, and he can never get back to that, but he gave you a glimpse. And I think for someone like Kobe Bryant, that was the perfect way for him to go out, even though that's not what you or I personally would envision.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at some of Steve Carlton's numbers.
Like someone on the YouTube chat, First NorCal Credit Union, brought up Michael Jordan. I think it was Zick. I appreciate that. So we were actually kicking this around the other day at the cafeteria. Like, to me, Michael Jordan, I think that's how he wanted to end his career in Chicago, having won, going out on top, but then coming back and proving that if he really wanted to, at age 40, could go out and get you 20 to 25 points a game for a bad team. Like, he might not have had much fun losing, but for whatever reason, that dog, that competitor, wouldn't let him hang it up, and he had to prove it to himself that he could still do it. Like, if Michael Jordan could still play, I think he would try.
But
some guys just don't want to give it up.
He would, but he would reach a point where he would say, I'm no longer playing at this level. Like, Michael Jordan would never keep playing if he was averaging 9 points a game and the ninth man. I don't think. I couldn't see him ever being a ninth man. I almost think, and if you want to jump into the conversation, the number's 888-957-9570. You know, what pro athlete to you went out perfectly in terms of his professional career? You know, you were a pro athlete, let's say. How would you want to go out? You play until the wheels come off, if you could script it. Somebody mentioned Tom Brady. Obviously, Tom Brady, you go out on top, that's as ideal as it gets. But a guy like Michael Jordan, to me, in a way, I don't know that he went to Washington because of this, but I do think at 40 he wanted to see if he could almost do the same thing that he did early in his career, which was score a lot of points, but no, you're probably not going to win a lot, which is what happened when he got to Chicago. But he was still, I think he was a leading scorer on those two Washington teams.
Yeah, and he had a 50-point game. He scored a 50-point game, and he's the oldest person to do it.
Do you look at that as adding to your legacy or detracting from your legacy? Can a guy do something to detract from a legacy?
To me,
just because they stink at the end of their career.
Well, from what I have read and seen about Michael Jordan, to me, that's kind of quintessential MJ, right? Like a guy that can just go out and prove that he can still score, and it doesn't matter who's on the floor. He's just going to go do it. Like, I mean, he's the ultimate winner.
Right.
He's kind of also the ultimate eye guy.
True.